And welcome into the only sports talk show that really matters right here on IUP-TV. It's The Big Hit. My name is Josh Hill. I'm going to be the host for this little soiree, so to speak, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start by putting in our call to the bullpen because Major League Baseball is here. And through the first 2 weeks, there have really been some surprising teams and disappointing teams. Our analysts are going to examine that a little further in this segment. And of course, we're going to look at the newest power rankings. What do our analysts think? That's coming up in the call to the bullpen. And then it's our NHL playoff preview. Mike Gosnell, Melissa Essing, and Ben Snyder will be here in studio to break down the first round matchups in the Stanley Cup playoffs, give their predictions of what to expect as we preview the 2014 NHL playoffs. And then it's a very special edition of the Crimson Huddle. Today on The Big Hit, we are joined by IUP men's basketball players Matisse Keita, Marcel Superbiel, and Devontae Chance. I will have an opportunity to sit down with them and pick their brains about the 2014 season. It's all coming up right here on The Big Hit, so be sure to stay tuned. And welcome into this soiree, so to speak. As I said in the intro, it's The Big Hit. You know, it's about a bit of a Mexican fiesta. We've got the maracas out, and it's time to take our call to the bullpen here for this segment. It's the Birdman, Kyle Kondor, and Anthony Shearer, our resident MLB experts. Guys, let's just start right here with the MLB as it's about 2 weeks in. It's been a crazy season this far. Which teams have been the most surprising to this point in the season?
I'm going to look at one team, and that's a team that went on a 9-game winning streak very early in the season. That's the Milwaukee Brewers. And I don't think it's too surprising because their lineup's stacked, to be honest with you. Gene Segura, Ryan Braun, Aramis Ramirez, just to name a few. The thing with the Brewers is that a lot of people kind of slept on them in the beginning of the season, being that they were in a strong NL Central division. And the fact that they were able to just kind of run through some divisional opponents the way that they did caught a lot of people off guard. So I'm definitely going to go ahead and say that the Milwaukee Brewers are definitely the most surprising team to this point.
I somewhat agree with you, Kyle. I think it's a good start for them, but my question around them is if somebody gets hurt on that team, their bench is a bunch of no-names, and Aramis Ramirez has not played a healthy season in about 5 years. Ryan Braun is just coming back from being suspended from steroids. You don't know, can you get a full season out of Gene Segura and Chris Davis and Jonathan Lucroy? That's the big question mark for me. Can they keep that roster healthy? And you look at that pitching staff. It's a bunch of overachievers right now with Gallardo and Matt Garza and a lot of those other guys. And I don't know, and Kyle Loesch, I don't know if they can keep it going all year. But expanding from that, my biggest surprise actually coming out right now is the Atlanta Braves. Everyone thought this team was done because a lot of their starting pitchers got hurt throughout the year, and they were a team that was inconsistent at best from the bats. But B.J. Upton's having a little bit of a bounce back year. They're getting production from their pitching staff. Irvin Santana last night had a great game for them. They're going to get Mike Minor back here eventually. So, and then they haven't even called up their best prospect in Christian Betancourt yet. So I think they're a surprise team for me. And then you look around, San Francisco's been another surprise team. The Chicago White Sox is a surprise team for me. So I think there's a couple surprises, but there are a lot more disappointments than there are surprises to me.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Milwaukee Brewers, in my opinion, is that all the players you named could potentially get hurt, you're right, but there's so many of them that if one or two guys gets hurt, the rest of their lineup is still stacked enough to do it. And you mentioned these guys as players who have been one-year wonders in the past, but Gallardo, Garza, Braun, Segura last year, these are all guys who have never really had a bad season yet. So I think that the chances they do now are very slim, and I think right now what we're seeing is just all of them coming together and having a really good start. I don't see them obviously winning the way that they've been for the rest of the year, but I think that this just makes the NL Central as a whole a much better division than a lot of people expected it to be.
I think they take the place of the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah.
I think the Cincinnati Reds, I'll touch on that in my disappointments. To them, Milwaukee's put themselves into that third spot in a potential wild card game. I don't think they're going to pass St. Louis, and I don't think if they're going to beat Pittsburgh out. I think Pittsburgh's going to figure that team out, and I think that it was just playing in Milwaukee where they've had problems in the past is going to be the issue. I think once Milwaukee comes to Pittsburgh, which they do this coming weekend, I think you're going to see really what Milwaukee's about. And maybe you're right. Maybe they won't get hurt, but I can't not see a couple of those guys not being hurt at some point this year. It can't just be 12 guys winning getting you in the playoffs. It has to be 25, 35 guys.
Absolutely, and I think that saying could be true for every team. Such a long season, injuries bound to happen for everybody. But turning the page a bit, of course, we said the Brewers and the Braves are the most surprising teams to this point. Who have you been disappointed in the most to this point in the season?
To me, it's got to be the Arizona Diamondbacks, and that's because they're filled with MVPs. Obviously, they had Patrick Corbin, who was one of their stronger starting pitchers, go out for the season. We'll touch on that a little bit later when we get into our Tommy John talks. But they have Paul Goldschmidt. They added Mark Trumbo. The two of them have been having big seasons, but nobody's helped them at all. This is a team that's allowed the most runs in the MLB by a long shot. And this is also the same team that before the season, a lot of people said they could potentially win that NL West. As of now, it looks like they could be the worst team in Major League Baseball, and they have been to start the season.
Yeah, I agree with you. Arizona has definitely been a huge disappointment for me. And then I'm going to transition into the AL. Kansas City, everyone talked about as a wild card team. They haven't started out of the gates really well. You go and look at Boston, the World Series champions from last year, under 500 right now. I mean, I'll even go somewhere a little further and maybe even say a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates, a little underachieving. They started out great, but they kind of got hurt in that series against Milwaukee. So I think there's a lot of teams out there that have just kind of been underachieving a little bit. And I don't think, and Cincinnati is definitely one of them to me, I don't think that team's going to figure it out. I think that team is going to be very bad the rest of this year. They have two guys in that lineup that can hit in Votto, and Billy Hamilton has struggled, but if he gets it going, it gives them a spark. But that's all it is for me. I don't think that team is going to make it, and their pitching staff hasn't lived up, and their bullpen has been rattled with injuries.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree with you more, Sheer. I think the Boston Red Sox are good when it looks as if some of the losses, such as Jacoby Ellsbury, who's now tearing it up for the Yankees, are going to hurt them a little bit more than people expected.
Yeah, see if the Red Sox are going to be able to get Dustin Pedroia back. The report came that he does not have a broken wrist, so that is certainly good news for Red Sox Nation. Of course, the Arizona Diamondbacks, a lot of people, especially here in the big hit contingent, thought that the Diamondbacks would have a very good year, and they are not to this point. But a couple of teams that are having a good year, of course, are the teams here listed in the power rankings. Of course, a staple weekly throughout the season. The top 5 in the power rankings are as follows. The Dodgers, the Brewers, the Tigers, the Rays, and the Cardinals round out the power rankings. Is this truly the way you see the teams stacking up this year?
I can't disagree with most of it, but one team that I do disagree with has got to be the Tampa Bay Rays. I personally thought this was a team that was a little overrated coming into the season, and that's because they're relying on a lot of young guys, and that really hasn't worked for many teams recently. They don't have too many guys. They got Longoria and David Price, who have been doing it for many years now, but this is a team that's already dealing with injuries. They're already, Matt Moore just went out for the season, also Tommy John surgery. They have Will Myers, who a lot of people thought could be an MVP candidate. I don't even think he's hitting 200 at this point in the season. This team was a little overrated to me coming into the season, and I definitely think they're overrated now because right now they're in the middle of an AL East division that a lot of people kind of saw as one that's diminishing coming into the season.
I agree with every team in that top 5 except for the Brewers. I think they're going to be the one team that takes a nosedive out of this top 5. I disagree with you. I think the Braves can go to the World Series. The Rays. They are, to me, one of the best young teams in the base. And you talk about young players not being good and not being able to make the playoffs. That team has won over 85 games since Madden has taken over, and they've been a consistent playoff
85 games isn't going to do it for you in that division.
No,
the Yankees actually won 85 games last year.
But they're consistently good, and their farm system is bringing guys up left and right. Alex Cobb, to me, is an ace in the making. That kid can throw gas, and he's going to take over that number 1 spot, even with Matt Moore being gone. So I think that team is by far a great team. And maybe Will Myers is struggling right now, but he's definitely going to be at the end of it a guy who's going to help carry that team. You have Evan Longoria. You have guys on that team that are good baseball players. They are more consistent than the guys you have in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is just taking advantage right now of some great early success hitting and pitching-wise. I can't see that working out because you guys have guys long-term that haven't been like Gallardo, who's been a decent starter, but has had the numbers he has right now. Yeah. So I think Milwaukee's the one team out of that 5 I think is going to fall off. I think Tampa Bay by the end of the year is going to easily win this division if Boston continues to struggle and easily walk away with that AL East.
Josh, to potentially take some words right out of your mouth, I think what we have here is a 30-team league. It's way too early to talk about the top 5. I think there's 12 to 15 teams in this league that could be mentioned in the top 5 of the league. So we'll really just have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. Still very early. These teams putting themselves in a position. The thing that's really going to be interesting is how are they going to be able to develop through the rest of the season? Will they be able to stay as baseball's elite? But going to end this Call to the Bullpen segment on a bit of a sad note here as Tampa Bay Rays pitcher Matt Moore is added to the list, a laundry list of pitchers who have to get Tommy John surgery this year. Is this Tommy John surgery becoming an epidemic in baseball? And if so, what needs to be addressed and how can it be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with me is it's not an epidemic because these are guys trying to protect their multi-million-dollar arms. If you're going to call it an epidemic, it's that because it's happening to the youngest great pitchers in the game. Matt Harvey, Strasburg, Corbin, Matt Moore, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think there's anything you can do about it. And to me, it seems as if, like I said, they're multi-million-dollar arms. They're protecting themselves. I think in years past, many years past, 50s, 60s, 70s, these are guys who kind of just went out there, gave it their all until they literally could not pitch another game. I think they literally just went out there and pitched until their arm fell off. So I don't think you're going to see that anymore because if they do that, there goes their multi-million-dollar contracts right out the door. And by seeing some guys come back and be even better than they used to be after Tommy John surgery, I think it's making a lot more of these younger pitchers go through with the surgery.
It also helps teams control, because I agree with Kyle on this. You got to look at a guy like Jamison Tyon for the Pirates, who's a prospect. It just adds another year of control that the Pirates have under him because he was going to come up this year and start for that team. But now he needs Tommy John surgery. He's going to be out the whole year. So that's just another year of control that they have on him so they can keep just building around him. I don't think it's an epidemic. I just think it's been a consistent problem, and I think it has to do with pitchers not throwing the ball that hard most of the time. They've kind of, they don't strain their arm as much as they had in the past, like Kyle mentioned. I just think overall, though, when you have big money guys, like if it was like a CC Sabathia or if it was a Yu Darvish or if it was a Verlander or a Scherzer, then we'd be having a problem. But it's these young guys who are really trying to get their arms major league ready to consistently pitch at a level they're going to have to for 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, certainly. You guys just touched on just about every single point. I think the main thing is with these young guys, these organizations want to protect their future assets. They have a big investment in a lot of these young pitchers, multi-million-dollar contracts. They do not want these pitchers to blow their arm out or do anything drastic very early on in their career. They want to see what they're able to get out of it. Hopefully, this will kind of settle down a bit. But that's all the time we have here in the Call to the Bullpen for Kyle Kondor and Anthony Shear. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to be going to the penalty box after the break for our 2014 NHL playoff preview. We'll be right back.
I thought this was a pretty good segment.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you even know what they're saying?
No.
You're putting your foot up on set. Do you just think this is a couch? This is embarrassing. I mean, even here, you're starting to interrogate somebody. Look at you. Turn your back to the camera. That's embarrassing. Where's your suit and tie? You have a Pirates shirt on.
They made the playoffs.
I don't care. You can't be biased. This is ridiculous.
And welcome back into the Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for our NHL playoff preview, and we've got a good cast of characters. Get comfortable, everybody, because we've got a lot to discuss. Mike Gosnell, Ben Snyder, and Melissa Essing here on the set. And let's just jump right into it as the NHL playoffs are approaching rapidly here. First games starting on Wednesday, and we're going to be getting in the Western Conference, and more specifically the Central Division, of course, with the #1 seed in the Central Division, the Colorado Avalanche, and the wild card Minnesota Wild. Of course, I'm just going to provide a little context for these matchups. The season series is 4-1, so what do we expect here in this matchup, guys?
Well, first, you can't help but praise Patrick Waugh for the job he's done with the Colorado Avalanche. Picking first overall, getting Nathan McKinnon. No one expected them to even make the playoffs this year, let alone even be the #1 seed. But that's where they find themselves. They're matching up against a more than capable Minnesota Wild team. Minnesota, a very, I would say, underachieving team so far with the budget players that they got, Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. I have Colorado victorious in this one simply because I think this play of Semyon Varlamov is going to be too much for Minnesota, and they have question marks in that themselves. Who's going to start for them? Is it going to be Darcy Kemper or Nick Backstrom? No one really knows. And the offense, I think, is another key. Patrick Waugh has done a really good job of maintaining solid pressure with all four lines, especially his top two lines. Adding Maxime Talbot for Steve Downey earlier in the season has really paid dividends for them. He's a guy who knows how to win in the playoffs. This is going to be a good series. I think Colorado's just going to be too much for Minnesota, though.
Yeah, I agree. I think Maxime Talbot, like you said, he's the X factor for Colorado. He won the Cup for the Penguins in 2009. He got those 2 goals against Detroit in Game 7. And you have Nathan MacKinnon, this rookie who comes out of nowhere and is probably going to win the Calder Trophy, tearing things up. And you have Matt Duchene. Is he hurt?
He is hurt.
He's hurt.
I believe he won't be in the first round, but I think it's a huge loss for them.
It's a massive loss for them. But if they stay healthy, if they make it to the next round and he comes back for the second round, they should be able to last even longer. But Paul Stastny is also a player for Colorado who can get things done. He's a good center. Is either first or second center, Deuce?
I believe he will now be the second line center, but still needs to work on his overall consistency.
And for Minnesota, you have Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. But behind that, you don't have that much for defense. I think you have Clayton Stoner, I think is the other person in there. But their defense can't handle the scoring power of Colorado. I think it'll go maybe 6 games, but it'll go to Colorado.
I agree. I think it's going to be very tough for the Minnesota Wild, the wild card, to overtake the Colorado Avalanche. The uncertainty of the Wild and their starters, it's not going to be a good match for the Avalanche. It'll be a good series for them, but they're not going to be able to overtake the Avalanche.
Yeah, certainly. We're going to be getting all of your playoff predictions later in the segment, so you know, if you want to give them, go ahead. But this is very informal, just trying to preview the playoffs here. One big thing with the Colorado Avalanche is they are 34-0-2 when leading after 2 periods of play this year. So if they're able to get a lead, very tough to take that away from them. One of the main reasons they're the #1 seed in the Central Division. But the 2-3 matchup, of course, pits what may be one of the best series in the playoffs, the St. Louis Blues and the Chicago Blackhawks. St. Louis leads this season series 3-2, but of course the playoffs are a whole different animal. What is going to happen in this series?
And like Josh, you said, you hit the reset button in the playoffs. The slates are wiped clean. It's a whole new chapter for teams to prove their worth in the playoffs. Now, they can't afford mistakes, and that goes for St. Louis, losers of 6 straight heading into the playoffs. The question is TJ Oshie going to be healthy enough? He says he will be, but the doctors will not clear him until they know for sure that he can go. And the big statement from Chicago is Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane will be in the lineup for Game 1 in St. Louis. You can't ask for better playoffs, in my opinion. This is probably one of the better playoffs in terms of matchups we've seen in a long time. Much like the NBA playoffs, the East is not as strong as the West this year. The West is full of strong teams that can make runs in the playoffs, deep runs too. This series is going to be much like the New York Rangers and the Philadelphia Flyers. These two teams hate each other. They're bitter rivals from the old Central Division before they restructured the lineup, so to speak, with adding Winnipeg from this summer. But I expect this series to go a full 7 games. I'll hold off on my prediction, but this is going to be a hell of a series for both teams. A lot of bruises and a lot of blood.
This is going to be a knockdown, drag-out series. You have St. Louis, who's missing, who have a couple of their players hurt right now, alongside TJ Oshie. And Taves and Kane from Chicago coming back to this first series. They might be a bit rusty for the first game, but when they get on, they're going to get on. Mm-hmm. Patrick Kane, coming off of a Conn Smythe year, is going to score goals. And he's backed up by Brent Seabrook, Duncan Keith, and the goaltender Corey Crawford. Chicago, I think, is going to have the edge in this one. It'll go a 7-game series, of course, but I think I have Chicago taking it as sort of the upset. I mean, it's a 2-3 matchup, but St. Louis should have won the division. They won the division, but they should have won the conference. But after that 6-game losing streak, they fell apart almost. And I think going into the playoffs, losing like that isn't a very good way to start things off here. If Chicago can just take 1 game at St. Louis, they should win the series.
Yeah, you never want to end the year on a 6-game losing streak. It's
Never.
all about how hot you are going into the playoffs, and
Exactly.
doesn't bode, from an outsider's perspective, doesn't bode well for St. Louis, losers of 6 straight.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Both teams are very stacked, and you have St. Louis, who has Ryan Miller defending them, and I think that it's going to be a very interesting series to watch. It's one that's going to be talked about for a while. It'll be tough for both teams. I definitely see it going to 7 games either way.
Yeah, both of these teams definitely have a very good chance if they're able to get past this matchup to run the entire way to the Stanley Cup. And a couple things to note about this game, of course, Chicago's penalty killing, not very good. They're ranked 20th in the league. And the St. Louis Blues, they've won 1 playoff series in their last 10 seasons. So will they finally be able to get over the hump? Again, not playing well heading into the playoffs. We'll see if they're able to dismantle the Blackhawks here in the first round. And let's move on right along in the Western Conference to the Pacific Division. Of course, the Anaheim Ducks, the #1 seed in the Pacific, going up against the second wild card, the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars actually lead the season series 2-1. What are you taking away from this matchup?
This is another series where maybe some analysts think this could go either way. Dallas, a team that I predicted would get into playoffs, and maybe not so many other analysts and experts picked to qualify for the playoffs this season. Dallas is an interesting team. Great goal scoring, a great top 6 with Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Valerie Nichushkin, and Ray Whitney. I have a problem with their bottom 6. It's not as strong as the Anaheim Ducks, and their defense is a little bit lacking, with the exceptions of Brendan Dillon and Sergei Gonchar and maybe Alex Goligoski. See who won that trade a couple years ago with James Neal and Alex Goligoski. But getting back on point, I think this matchup comes down to goaltending. Who has the better goaltending? You look at Anaheim. They can go 3 deep. John Gibson had a very good outing in his first couple games that he started at the last tail end of this season. Jonas Hiller's there, of course, and so is Frederik Andersen. You look at Dallas, Kari Lehtinen, Tim Thomas. Tim Thomas, capable a couple years ago, took a year off. I don't trust Tim Thomas, even though he does have cup experience. It boils down to goaltending. I'll give Anaheim the edge as far as goaltending, defense, and offense is concerned. But I think Dallas can steal a couple games, maybe even push us to a 7.
It's very possible. And going along with Tim Thomas, he won a cup with Boston in 2011.
Yes.
So he has the experience to back it up. Contrasting that, though, Anaheim has veteran presence of Teemu Selanne, probably his last season of his life, of his career. And he should be able to make things happen for Anaheim. He should be able to score goals alongside Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf. That is a dangerous line. And Kari Lehtinen should, well, forgive me, but let them in.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with what you said, Goose. I do think that it all comes down to goaltending. Anaheim does have an edge over the Dallas Stars, but the Stars do have another sort of edge, if you will, because they are very excited to be in the playoffs in general, and they have that kind of momentum going for them. That's a big deal for them, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, Melissa, I think you said it best. The Dallas Stars returning to the playoffs. This is their first time they've been in the playoffs since 2008, and they have one of my favorite players in the NHL in Jamie Benn. Really a good young superstar there in Dallas. And, of course, the Anaheim Ducks. They lead the NHL in goals with over 3 a game they average. So really a lot of offensive firepower in Anaheim. Dallas squeaking into the playoffs. Really looks like a lopsided matchup, but of course anything can happen in the NHL playoffs. And rounding out the Western Conference, of course, it is the 2-3 matchup in the Pacific Division. That pits the San Jose Sharks against the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings lead the season series 3-2. What are you thinking in this one?
I'm thinking that we're due for another San Jose beatdown. Meaning they're not going to make it out of the first round. San Jose is a team that is a perennial playoff contender. At least they're that on paper. But when it boils right down to it, they don't have what it takes to compete in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They have the firepower on paper. Logan Couture, Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, Marty Havlat. They don't have the heart it takes to compete in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Joe Thornton, a very overrated player, probably one of the more overrated players in the National Hockey League history. I see LA winning this series in 6 simply because I don't believe in San Jose. I like what LA has done to rebound after maybe a little bit of a shaky start with Jonathan Quick going down, but Martin Jones has really stepped in and done a fantastic job, so they have a solid backup there. Overall, solid team in LA, but they have more heart than San Jose does, and that's what it boils down to for me in this series.
This is going to be a great series. 2 of my favorite Western teams, San Jose Sharks and the Los Angeles Kings. With Jumbo Joe, I think he's a perennial playoff choker. Sharks haven't gotten past the conference finals in the past 10 years, it seems like. Back behind Jumbo Joe, they just can't get it done with him. Even though they have the player looks just like me, Brent Burns, the scoring power of him, Havlet, Jumbo Joe, I don't think they'll be able to beat Jonathan Quick and the defense, Drew Doughty.
They're a paper champion. They're always labeled.
They've always looked good.
Perennial Cup contenders, but it's on paper. They never show that they can get over that hump with teams that are just better than them.
And the Canes are a possession team. They don't have the puck in your zone, and they will score on you. Andrei Kopitar in there leading the way, who's a playmaker. And I think the Canes will win this series. It'll go 7 games. It'll be a fantastic series to watch.
Yeah, the Kings do have it all. I mean, they're a team that had the Stanley Cup to themselves a couple of seasons ago, and the San Jose Sharks, they're a team that is always there and around, but they kind of just never have what it takes to just be, successful overall. They haven't done it, and the Kings have all of that. They have the Stanley Cup recently, and that's going to be a big deal for them.
Yeah, Los Angeles really likes to show up in clutch time, and it seems like San Jose kind of quivers to the task, if you will. Both teams very good in faceoffs. They both win about 52% of their draws. That's second in the NHL. So faceoffs.
Andrei Kopitar is a big part of that. Kopitar is a very, very capable center iceman. Reminds me a lot of Pavel Datsyuk, but a less skilled version.
Yeah, and
of
a lot
Pavel Datsyuk.
He's
going to be a guy that's going to compete for the Selke Trophy for years to come.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
And a lot of people don't even give him any credit for his defense. They think of him more of a playmaker, but he is one of the best defensive players in the game. But we've got to move along here quickly. We're going to take a flight and head to the East Coast, get a little closer to home here in the Eastern Conference. Starting in the Atlantic Division, of course, pitting the Boston Bruins against the Detroit Red Wings. Detroit leads this season series 3-1. Can the Red Wings pull the upset here?
Absolutely they can. I mean, when you think about it, this is the worst case scenario for Boston, and it's the worst case scenario for Detroit. Boston, I think, of course, they'd rather face the Columbus Blue Jackets. Any team would rather face the Columbus Blue Jackets. And Detroit, I guarantee if you asked them, they'd probably lie to you, but they would rather have faced the Pittsburgh Penguins because they match up better with Pittsburgh than they do with Boston. But looking at this series, it's another game where two teams with good bottom six, good depth down the middle. You're going to have Henrik Zetterberg back for Detroit, Pavel Datsyuk as well. Huge loss on the other side with Dennis Seidenberg being out now for the remainder of the playoffs. It's going to be another bruisers-type series. A lot of skill, but I think we'll see it go 7 games, potentially. It has a potential.
Detroit's been plagued with injuries this season, second behind the Penguins in terms of man games lost. And I don't know if they're going to have Zetterberg back for the first round or not. He's been talking about it, but it's not officially yet. Pavel Datsyuk will be back. He's been playing a few games, and I think with Boston, they're going to take the series in 6 games, maybe 5. I don't just see Jimmy Howard be able to stop all 4 lines of Boston. They will score you with every line.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think this is going to be a bloodbath. You have 2 original 6 teams going head-to-head. Boston has the depth all around. They have the goaltending, offensive and defensive. They have what it takes, and I don't think that they're going to give the Red Wings a very easy time with it. I think it's going to go to 7 games.
Absolutely, and to your point, Ben, Detroit has actually lost 412 games in man games, and the Boston Bruins are top 3 in the NHL in goals for, goals against, and power play percentage. They are absolutely loaded up and down the board. Really looks like Detroit just picked the wrong team or got the wrong draw, so to speak. But let's move right along here as we run low on time. Tampa Bay and Montreal, of course, the 2-3 in the Atlantic region. Tampa Bay leads the season series 3-1. So let's quickly get a quick preview of this series.
Another series I'm very much looking forward to this one. Home ice matters in the NHL playoffs, and Tampa Bay was fortunate enough to beat Washington in their last game, but it all revolves around who gets the better goaltending, Carey Price for Montreal or Anders Lindback for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay will be without Ben Bishop for Game 1, presumably for a much longer period of time. This one has another possibility of going 7 games. This is going to be another interesting series. A lot of good offensive players in this series, too.
I'm taking Tampa Bay to actually lose this series. Montreal is going to win the series on the backs of Carey Price, who's going to stand on his head against the likes of Steven Stamkos and the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, I do think that Carey Price is going to be the ultimate factor for the Canadians. When it comes to Tampa Bay, though, I mean, you had Steven Stamkos that was out for a significant amount of time, and then the younger players took that, as an opportunity to grow. So they do have that working for them, especially if Steve Stamkos is able to play well and everything. And it's going to be interesting to see how that works out because Carey Price is going to be very significant in that.
Yeah, absolutely. The goaltending matchup's important in all these playoff series, but this one in particular because Tampa might have to rely on Andres Lindback, who does not have very good numbers this year, over a 3.2 goals against average, and Carey Price, of course, one of the best goaltenders in the league. See if that shifts the series to Montreal's favor, but of course, with Tampa and all their firepower, you never know what to expect in this one. But we're going to move to the Metropolitan Division, of course, with the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Pittsburgh actually swept Columbus in this season series 5-0, and it looks like Columbus, their playoff run might come to an end because the Penguins are starting to get healthy.
Pittsburgh fans and their teams consider themselves very lucky that they drew Columbus instead of Philadelphia or Detroit. Not a knock on Columbus. I think they could steal a game or two in the series, but you see the stat 5-0 in the season series. Although the slates are wiped clean. Pittsburgh too strong. I don't think Columbus is nearly ready for this. They have some good veteran leadership on that team, but they're one of the younger teams in the NHL, and I just don't see how Columbus can match that firepower. But if Bobrovsky gets hot and stands on his head, they have a legitimate chance.
Even though this is supposedly a cakewalk for Pittsburgh, there's still a lot of questions going into the season or the postseason. Evgeny Malkin feels good, but he might not play just yet. And there's always Marc-Andre Fleury, who's just a big question mark surrounding him in this entire postseason. You don't know which Fleury is going to show up. The one who won the Stanley Cup for them a couple years ago, or the one who didn't do very well against Tampa Bay and Philadelphia and Boston, for that matter, or the entire series last year, everything. And then you have the defense. Crystal Tang is back. Paul Martin is back. Brooks Orpik's there. Rob Straderi he's had a very good year right now, but I think if Pittsburgh can win the series soundly against Columbus, and they should give them a lot of confidence going into the next round against who they face.
Yeah, the Penguins definitely got very lucky with this matchup. I mean, they were so unlucky as far as injuries go throughout the entire season. Many players on their roster were injured, and they faced a difficult time. At one point, it seemed like it was the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Penguins, and they succeeded. They did a great job considerably. As far as what you said for Marc-Andre Fleury, I think that he had a great redemption season as far as how bad his performance was in the playoffs last year. I think it's good that Vokoun has returned from his conditioning assignment from Wilkes-Barre-Scranton. If need be. The Penguins fans hope that they don't need to see Vokoun or Zatkoff in that case, especially because Vokoun hasn't even played a single game this season. But Marc-Andre Fleury does look a lot better and coming into this season as he did before.
Absolutely. The Penguins, 512 man games lost this year. That's tops in the NHL by far. About 100 games there. Columbus has only qualified for the playoffs twice. They've never won a playoff series. It's going to be a tough task against the Penguins. But our final first-round matchup we're going to preview is the final first-round matchup here. The Rangers and the Flyers, the season series is tied 2-2. This is really going to be a good old-fashioned slobber knocker, to quote Jim Ross. Goose, here we go. What are you expecting in this?
Well, business will pick up.
That's what I'm thinking.
In this series a lot. This is going to be so interesting. I can't wait for this series to start. I'm not going to go too in-depth here. You obviously know who I support in this one. But it's going to come down to who has the better goaltending and who can keep the puck out of their own net as far as defense is concerned. So, bruising bloodbath again.
This is the matchup of the East for now. Philadelphia and New York split the series 2-2 right now in the season, which is what we're going to expect in the playoff series. It'll be 7 games, easily 7 games. Between Steve Mason and Henrik Lundqvist, who do you take over there? Mason's had probably the best year of his career, except for the Vezina winning year he had with Columbus way back when. He's fallen off a lot, but now he's back. And backed by the forward Claude Giroux, who guaranteed his team to win the playoffs, I think, when they were 1-7 early on in the season. And look where they got him. third place in the Metropolitan Division, and a playoff ticket to see New York.
Yeah, Claude Giroux had a great hand in having to do with what happened with the Flyers getting into the playoffs, and it's going to be interesting because the Rangers goaltender situation, they're perfect when it comes to Lundqvist, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Claude Giroux does in that series. But I do think we can expect to see a lot of pretty much a bloodbath out of the two teams.
Yeah, this is really going to be a big-time series. Of course, the Flyers starting really bad this year. They were able to rebound, get into the playoffs. Now they have to face the New York Rangers. Ben, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Who do you have in the Stanley Cup, and who do you have winning before we go to break?
I have the Bruins, and I'm going to have the Kings in the Stanley Cup.
Okay, who's winning that?
The Bruins.
Boston Bruins for Ben. We're going to take a quick break and return with Goose and Melissa's picks here on the screen. They're going to fill out their playoff bracket when we return, so stay tuned right here on The Big Hit.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back into The Big Hit NHL postseason special. We are now going to preview our brackets. I'm Mike Gosnell, joined alongside by Melissa Essing here, and let's get right into it. Starting with Western Conference in my bracket, going back to what I said earlier, Colorado just too much for Minnesota. I think they're going to get it done in 5 games. Moving on, they're going to face the St. Louis Blues, like I said on the Out of Bounds podcast. Very, very deep St. Louis team. I don't think Chicago will muster up enough energy for them. 7-game series, but St. Louis will be victorious. Almost a slam dunk again. I have the Anaheim Ducks defeating the Dallas Stars in the first round in 6 games. Dallas is going to be a good team for years to come, but they're not quite ready yet. San Jose, LA, paper champion in San Jose. Give me the Kings for the Western Conference. Moving out to the Eastern Conference now, it's Boston against Detroit. 7-game series. Detroit, a lot of potential there, a lot of leadership. Boston in 7. Montreal and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay gets home ice. Hopefully they can get some good goaltending with Anders Lindback. That's a prayer, but I think they can get this done in 7 games. Pittsburgh and Columbus, another easy, no-brainer one, but don't be surprised if Columbus can steal 1 or 2 games. But Pittsburgh will be moving on. And the New York Rangers, Philadelphia Flyers, probably the best matchup in the first round. 7-game series again. I think Madison Square Garden will play a key factor. We'll see the New York Rangers moving on to face Pittsburgh Penguins.
Okay, well, I have the Avalanche beating the Wild for the first round. Wild are a wild card team, and I don't see them having what it takes to beat the Avalanche, honestly. And moving on, the Blues and Blackhawks. Blackhawks are going to have 2 significant players back to their roster that were recently injured and unhealthy, but I don't think that they're going to have what it takes to defeat the Blues. Moving on to the Ducks and the Stars. The Stars are very excited, as I said previously, that they're in the playoffs. It's a big deal for them, but I don't see them beating the Ducks. Moving on to the Sharks and the Kings. The Kings have what it takes. They were recently in the Stanley Cup playoffs a couple seasons ago. They won it all. They have what it takes. They have that depth. San Jose is a great team overall, but I don't think they can beat the Kings. And moving on to the Eastern, Bruins and Red Wings. As I said before, two of the original 6 teams. It's going to be a bloodbath, but the Bruins, they want it. They have the depth. They have everything they need. I see them destroying the Red Wings, but 7 games. Tampa Bay and the Canadiens, I think it's going to be hard as far as the goaltending situation goes. Carey Price is great, but I see the Lightning just taking it. Moving on to the Penguins and the Blue Jackets, the Penguins want it. They have had such a rough season as far as injuries go. That I think it's going to be an easy series for them, honestly, dare I say. But they're gonna take them at least, I think, in 6 games. And then Rangers and Flyers. Flyers have Claude Giroux. He did such a significant, helpful job for getting them into the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to be able to get past Lundqvist. I think that the Rangers have a good situation here, and I think that they're going to put it past them.
And now moving on to our conference final picks here, we're going to see my bracket. I have the Colorado Avalanche squeaking out another game 7. They're going to go to at home ice, Pepsi Center. They're going to beat St. Louis in 7 games. They're going to move on to the conference finals. Who would say that? Who predicted that? No one in the beginning of the season. And looking at the next matchup in the West, Teemu Selanne, Corey Perry, they'll get it done for the Ducks. They'll move on to face Colorado, going back out east. Boston over Tampa Bay, too strong for the Lightning. A lot of good leadership on the Lightning, but a good, solid core of players for Boston that's going to trump them. And as much as it pains me to say it personally, the New York Rangers will fall to the Pittsburgh Penguins. They'll move on to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay, and I had a little bit of a different one here. I'm saying that the Blues are going to take it over the Avalanche. I think that they're a much stronger team in this sense. It's going to be very interesting if this is the case, but I do see the Blues coming out on top with that. And as far as the Kings and the Ducks go, it's going to be interesting with that too. You have two very powerful teams in the West, but I do see the Ducks coming out on top with that. And moving on to the East, Bruins over Lightning. Bruins are stacked, as I said. The depth is ridiculous. I see them taking it easily against the Lightning. And coming down to the Penguins and the Rangers, it's going to be interesting. These are two very kind of hatred teams here. I think that the Penguins have what it takes to progress in that series.
And that's going to move us on to the Stanley Cup Finals. I have the Anaheim Ducks beating the Colorado Avalanche in 6 games. They'll move on to the Stanley Cup Final, and Boston beating Pittsburgh in 7. End of the day, it's going to be Tuukka Rask against Marc-Andre Fleury. Give me Tuukka over Marc-Andre. And then in the finals, as you can see, I have Teemu Selanne going out with a bang, winning the Stanley Cup with the Anaheim Ducks. Corey Perry will be my Conn Smythe winner for them. Going to cap off a very good season, and Bruce Boudreau will finally win his first Stanley Cup.
Okay, and I have for the Blues and Ducks matchup, I have the Blues beating them. I think that overall they're going to have what it takes. And for the East, I have the Bruins playing the Penguins, and Bruins, they're gonna destroy the Penguins. I don't want to say it's going to be a repeat of last season. I think the Penguins are going to bring a lot to the table in this one, but I do see the Bruins taking them in that. And then I have the Bruins taking it overall. They have so many great players that want this. They need this cup, and I think that they're going to be able to triumph over every other team in this.
Should be a fantastic Stanley Cup playoff. So that's going to wrap it up for the NHL playoff preview. We're going to send it over to Josh Hill, where he'll have the Crimson Hawk men's basketball players Marcel Superbiel, Matisse Keita, and Devontae Shench. You'll not want to miss that, so stay tuned.
And welcome back into the Big Hit. It's time for our Crimson Huddle, and we are literally in the Crimson Huddle. If you're at the KCAC, this is what you're going to see. The IUP men's basketball team is joining us here. We're going to pick their brains for a little bit, starting from left to right. Matisse Keita, Marcel Superbiel, and Devontae Chance. My name is Josh Hill. Guys, let's just get right into it. Finished the year 24-5, 13-3 in the PSAC West, and concluded your season against West Liberty in triple overtime. Your program is one of the most consistent in all of Division II. You've compiled a 132-26 record over the past 5 years. What does Coach Lombardi's leadership mean to your guys' team?
I think you're a great coach. He just really knows what he's talking about, and we know that we got to listen to him at any time because he's been through he won a lot of games and all that stuff. He got a lot of experience, so I think he's a big part of why we win so much.
Definitely a great coach, and I think one of the things that stood out to me ever since I got here like a freshman was, stick to the process and keep working the cut. That things are not going your way right now. If you keep working at it, they eventually will. You don't know when it's going to fall through for you, but if you keep dedicating, working yourself towards it, then you're going to see the results.
Yeah, just to touch on what they said. He's one of the best coaches I have, if not the best. He's really big on the little things, and that's what gets us over the hump from tough games and just to play well on defense. He's teach defense, and he got a lot of coaching plays. So, but one of the best coaches I had too. Absolutely, and a great staff as well. Of course, some brand new assistants with Matt Hahn and Steve Pietrowicz and Thomas Young, of course, transferring from the court to the bench as well. But let's get a little personal here, and I want to hear what the best moment of the season was to you.
I think it was against Slippery Rock on the road. It was like the biggest game of the year for them, and they had a really big crowd, and we actually had a very good game and won on the road. So I thought it was the best time of the season.
To me, I think that, I don't know, the moment I felt best was when I made a couple of those shots against West Liberty. I think that just the confidence I had throughout the game, and really I was thinking that there's no way we're losing this game. You know, it ended up being fatal and didn't go our way, you know, but there were a couple of minutes throughout the game that I was, you know, we got this, like we're moving on to the chip game, like we're going to the Elite Eight. I thought that we were playing that well and that we, you know, we were able to. I still think till today that we could have gotten there.
I say my best moment was knowing that we was going to the NCAA tournament, just to keep the season going, and knowing that we won the regular season in our conference. So yeah, just them two.
Yeah, certainly no shortage of moments to choose from. And this season was really a banner year for IUP, especially on the defensive end of the basketball. You were top 10 in the country in nearly every statistical category. What was the team's defensive philosophy that led to such success on the defensive side of the floor? You guys were so good all year long.
I think we could have been even better. I mean, it's what we work on to be. You know, we work to be a good defensive team. And, you know, the days that our offense is not there, we look to win it with our defense, you know. But I think that there were a couple games that we lost, and key games are 2 games with Gannon in California that we didn't play defense as, you know, as IUP plays, and not the level that we expected at least, and that's why we lost.
Coach really big on talking, communicating on defense, finishing with rebounding. And yeah, I think like what Marcel said, I think we could have been a better defensive team, but you know, we were still highest in the country, so, but there's always room to improve.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're a pretty good defensive team, like they said. We could have been better in a couple games, but I just thought it was a mindset. Everybody was ready every game to play defense, and this year I think we had a good overall quickness on the team, so I think it helps a lot too.
Yeah, certainly athleticism, communication, 2 big keys for defense, and you really need that playing in the largest conference in Division II, which is loaded with a lot of quality teams, that of course being the PSAC. And you also considered what many would say was the best region in the NCAA tournament, in that Atlantic region. How did playing competition like this help or hurt you guys?
Personally, I enjoy it. I think it's not fun to win a game by 40 points or 50. So I enjoy competing every day and knowing that we beat a good team every time we play a game. So personally, I think it's great.
The tournament is what every kid wants to play. You know, what every young kid dreams of playing one day, playing the NCAA tournament. And it's those games that when the season starts, you wish, all right, let me fast forward till there. You know, but there's a lot you got to do and work on before getting there. But the NCAA tournament, it's what we all dream about. And I mean, we've been fortunate. Tay's been 3 years in a row. He's got a year left. I've been 4 years in a row. He's been with Gonzaga before, and now 2 years in a row with us. So, you know, there's a lot of people that never played an NCAA tournament before.
Playing in the P set, it being so competitive, I think it helps more than anything, because even if playing a competitive team and you don't get the win, you still get the experience and you get ready to prepare for the next competitive team. So it helps more than anything to me.
Yeah, certainly. And every team, of course, wanting to reach the goal of winning championships, playing teams like that would be big. And now I want to kind of go a little around the room and ask some individual questions. Devontae, we'll start with you. Sure. With the season not ending too long ago, of course, the life of a college athlete never slows down. What are you doing now in the offseason to prepare for next year?
Lifting, trying to get myself better in shape, running, and then just working on the skill set, my fundamentals and all that, trying to get everything to the next level so I can get ready for my senior year. Absolutely, and Matisse, we'll move on over to you. What is the main difference between playing at IUP compared to Division I Gonzaga?
First of all, I wasn't playing at Gonzaga, so I couldn't really tell you what. I guess I guess players are just bigger. Like you play against 7-footer guys. That's the main difference. I think Division II got a lot of talent as well, and it's just that there's always a reason why you end up being D2, but it's a lot of good players. So very talented, just didn't have a chance. So I guess the level is really high as well.
Absolutely, Marcel. Don't want to leave you out here in the conversation. After playing here for 4 years, what is it like to see this basketball program kind of transform from a level that it was to where it is now?
Well, when I first got here, you know, coming the team previously to the year I got here, lost the national championship, so you already have, you know, the expectation, you know, since day one, and the culture of the program, and you know, a program that is dedicated to win, that we all always think about winning, and if we don't, we're not comfortable, and it's basically like failure. So ever since day one, and with the other guys that were before, and the coaching staff just transmitting that stuff to me, and you know, hopefully it'll remain in Devontae's hands now, and he'll pass it on to other people, you know.
Absolutely, and I want to, of course, touch on the graduating seniors, Matisse, Cade, and Marcel Suberbiel. What are your future plans after graduation, and what do you want to be remembered for in your IUP careers?
Hold on, what was the question again? What am I doing?
What are your future plans after graduation? It's a two-part question. So
I
future
forgot
plans
the first
after
one.
graduation, and then what do you want to be remembered for here at IUP?
Right now, I'm trying to get a contract overseas, especially in France. Being from France, I have the best chance, I would say. So right now I'm just trying to stay in shape and get ready for the next level. And then what I want to be remembered for, just somebody that won a lot of games. And that's all I can ask for.
Absolutely, and same question applies to you, Marcel. What do you want to be remembered for here at IUP?
Well, I don't know. I just want to be remembered as a, you know, team player, 4-year guy that, you know, developed himself and went from different role to different role each year. A guy that earned it, nobody gave it to him. And you know, 2 PSAC championships, 4 NCAA tournaments. Not every guy had that here, you know. So I think that's something to be remembered of. And in the future, same as Matisse, I'm looking to continue playing professionally. I have the chance to do it back home in Uruguay, and hopefully I'll get the opportunity to play somewhere else. If not, I'll be playing in Uruguay, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, certainly. And Devontae, you're going to be back next year, so looking forward, of course. You're losing 2 key contributors in these two. What can you do to replace the production of Matisse and Marcel?
You got
No way.
you can't replace Matisse. So we could try to get better though as a team. Bring in some new recruits coming in. Just get them familiar with the culture and how we play. How some hardworking guys like these two. As far as senior leadership, that's when I gotta step up. Me and Jay. And yeah, you can't really replace them. Just hope to be as good as we were when they was here.
Yeah, of course, referring to Jay, that being Jeremy Jefferson. Now, guys, you're kind of outsiders here looking into this IUP basketball program. So what would you say the outlook for this team is next year?
We winning the chip.
You heard it here first. That's right.
I mean, it's tough. My opinion is, you know, losing 2 seniors and 2 starters, you know, and we really, I don't know, the coaching staff really needs to find, you know, a couple players that can play right away. Players that played this year and, you know, that maybe didn't have as much minutes have to step up, and that's how it's been, you know. The year before me and Matisse became seniors, that was the same expectation, you know, like, oh, what's going to happen now? Like, who's going to score and this and that. And basically what happened is that we all worked, Devontae, me and Matisse, and we got better. And it's not like we really got transfers or players from you know, other schools that came and made a huge difference. Like maybe years before when we had him coming right away and being a big presence, or Josh Wiegand or Anthony Wells, guys like that. So I think it's going to be something like that next year.
Well, first of all, I think They're going to be a really good team because I know they're going to work for it. Because I know all the guys on the team right now, and they're already working, so there's no reason for them not to succeed. And then obviously, like every year, Coach always do a good job to bring good recruits. So I know they're going to have a very competitive team.
Absolutely, and of course, being outsiders, you guys, the senior leaders of this team this year, what is one piece of advice you would give next year's team if you could?
Advice, stick to the process and keep working the cut.
Yeah, I would say that, especially for the younger guys, you know, the new guys we had in last season's team, they know how hard it is now, you know. They know what it's going to take to get there and to win a championship. I guess this year didn't go as it expected, but now they really know what it's about, and hopefully they'll take the experience from this year and, you know, make it a championship next year.
For sure. Be sure to keep an eye on Devontae Chance and the rest of the IUP Crimson Hawks next season. That's all the time we have here in the Crimson Huddle. Want to thank Matisse Cada, Marcel Superbiel, and Devontae Chance for hopping on the show.
What up, world? Kyle Kondor here, taking over for the usual Shaun P. McCarthy on this week's edition of the 2-Minute Drill. But wait, there's more action going on in sports right now than the amount of action Alden Smith's mailbox is getting from lawyers. And I only have 1 minute and 45 seconds left to get this over with. What do I look like, Aaron Harrison? Too bad he didn't get a shot at hitting another game winner since Shabazz Napier and the hungry Huskies stomped all over the Wildcats of Kentucky in the national championship game. But enough about college. The NBA playoffs are coming up, and surprise, surprise, Carmelo won't be winning his first playoff series this year. Can you blame him, though? I don't even think Dr. James Andrews can fix the Knicks situation in New York right now. I'll tell you what, though, he's fixing a lot of elbows. Some are calling the 2014 MLB season the year of the elbow ligament. No, this Tommy John stuff is starting to become an epidemic in the sport we like to call America's pastime. Matt Moore of the Tampa Bay Rays just joined the list of young hurlers that'll be sidelined till the middle of next year because of elbow surgery. I'll tell you what I am looking forward to, though, the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's time, ladies and gentlemen. We've sat through an 82-game season, and now we have to wait until June just to see who'll be facing the Boston Bruins in the finals. At least the West is up for grabs, though. The Ducks, the Sharks. Where am I? SeaWorld? Anyway, they all have a shot at winning that big, oversized silver trophy. What's it called again? Oh, yeah, the Stanley Cup. I knew that. As long as the Dallas Stars don't win it, though. Why am I hoping they lose, you ask? That leads me right into my Trillist Person of the Week. But heck, I'm only doing this once, so why not give you my Trillist Person of the Century? I'll have to give that award to Guy Carbonneau, who apparently decided it was a good idea to throw the cup off the roof of a house into a pool the last time the Stars won the cup in 1999. He ended up doing some serious damage to the thing. Good job, buddy. Anyway, that's all the time I have here. For producers Dimitri George, Dan Wallace, and director Danielle Eberly, I'm Kyle Kondor. In the words of Mr. George himself, all right, see ya.